Washington.
I'm joined now by the Israeli ambassador to Washington, Ron Dermer. Ambassador, welcome.
Good to be with you.
Good to have you here. First, the news. Is the ground operation in Gaza about to end?
Well, we're finishing up decommissioning these tunnels. You know, we've uncovered about 3 dozen tunnels, and we
Destroying, I guess that means.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
We've destroyed these tunnels that are used to actually burrow underneath Israel's borders, come out on the other side, massacre our civilians, massacre soldiers, kidnap people. So once we've uncovered these, we're obviously going to destroy them, and we hope that that job will be completed in a matter of hours, not days.
So ground troops will come out in the course of the day?
Well, we're going to redeploy our forces.
Meaning they'll be taken out of Gaza?
Not necessarily. It means that we'll redeploy to a position where Israel can continue to do what it has to do to protect the security of our people.
What is the state of Gaza being demilitarized? In other words, having the capacity for Hamas to fire off rockets?
Well, their capacity has been significantly degraded because we've hit a lot of their missile batteries, a lot of their rocket warehouses. They've also fired over 3,000 rockets at our country. So they started this operation with over 10,000 rockets. They're probably less than half at this point. The key, David, is to prevent them from rearming in the future. This is the 3rd time we've had to have a confrontation with Hamas. The first was in 2008 in Kasled. The second was in Pillar of Defense in 2012. Now we're in 2014, a year and a half after Pillar of Defense. What we don't want to see is us simply leaving and allowing Hamas to use the time to simply rearm thousands of rockets, more tunnels. We have to make sure that we have an effective mechanism to prevent Hamas from rearming and refueling its war machine.
So, Ambassador Mansour, just here, saying, look, you are essentially, Israel is giving space to Hamas because the population is desperate, is being hit in attacks, civilians killed. While he would not express outrage toward Hamas for starting all of this, it's still a reality that Hamas was isolated, disliked by most of the Arab world, and yet this campaign has given them newfound political energy and support.
Oh, I don't think so. I think they're more isolated. I think they're
within Gaza. They're not casting off the government.
I think they're well. 5 Palestinians were executed a few days ago. I don't know if you know that. They tried to protest against Hamas. You know, it's not a free society in Gaza. You can't just come out and say you're against Hamas. They actually shoot you. And it was very telling that the Palestinian official would not actually condemn Hamas. His problem is he has to go back to Ramallah, and Ramallah right now, President Abbas, is in an alliance with Hamas. Let's remember what Hamas is. This is like Al-Qaeda. They're a terror organization. They're committed to our destruction. This is an organization whose officials were celebrating on 9/11 when thousands of Americans were killed, whose prime minister, who is right now underneath in some tunnel in Gaza, he actually condemned the United States for killing Osama bin Laden. That's who we're dealing with.
So what is the solution here? You don't have a delegation that's going to Egypt to engage in talks.
What's the point?
Well, I'm asking you, but is there really a military solution to this? I mean, if you look at Andrew Mitchell's piece in this larger question, which is well acquainted as I am, obviously, with Israel's arguments about its security, are you paying a price here that ultimately endangers Israel's security in the future, inflames not just international opinion against Israel, but certainly within Gaza and the Arab world to a point where you're losing the larger war, even if you achieve some military objectives right now?
No, I don't think so. You have to fight terror. You can't embrace terrorists. That's unfortunately what President Abbas has done. Take the case of Iraq. Do you think the solution of Iraq is to have the Iraqi government just simply include ISIS as a member of the government? Because that's what the Palestinian government just did. They did it 2 months ago. We were very much opposed to it and very upset when the international community basically said, hey, this is a good thing for peace. It's a terrible thing for peace. The road to peace goes over Hamas. It doesn't include Hamas.
So is there a military solution to the Hamas problem?
Yes. And Israel right now is working very hard to degrade their capability.
Degrade? I mean, can you eliminate Hamas?
There's a cost for any action that you have. And
is Israel willing to pay it?
And unfortunately, Israel has many threats. This is not the only threat that Israel faces. We live in a very, very unstable region.
But what do you want? If you want the Palestinian Authority led by Mahmoud Abbas to have a greater political say in what happens in Gaza, then how do you achieve that?
Do you think
militarily?
That Hamas is going to allow him to go in? Hamas was the ones who threw them out. The Palestinian official who sat here forgot to mention that in 2007 there was a coup in Gaza. Palestinian officials were thrown out of over the tops of buildings. They were shot, Palestinian Authority officials. Now, unfortunately, they're in an alliance with this terror organization. I hope and it's a genocidal terror organization. Hamas's charter calls for the murder of Jews worldwide. I hope that after this round of fighting is over, that President Abbas will abandon the pact that he's made with Hamas, and then he'll go back to peace negotiations.
Is the number of civilian deaths by Israel in Gaza unacceptable to Israel?
Well, every civilian death is unacceptable to Israel. We don't try to kill any civilian. The problem that we have is we have an enemy that both fires indiscriminately at our civilians, but hides behind their own civilians. They use hospitals and schools and mosques. They embed themselves in civilian areas. They want those civilians' deaths. Hamas doesn't care about the civilian population in Gaza. Look, we left Gaza in 2005. We withdrew to all of our settlers. We withdrew all our military, and we said, hey, make a better future for Gaza. People were hoping at the time they were going to make a Singapore in Gaza of the Middle East. Instead, they built an Iran in the Middle East, used all this concrete to build a subterranean fortress in Gaza, and use all the iron not to build buildings and schools, but to actually manufacture rockets to fire at Israel.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Ambassador Ron Dermer, thank you so much. We'll
be
monitoring the situation. When we come back here, we'll switch gears. We'll talk politics.